What's up, you guys? Today my knees are tight, they're stiff. Let's try that again. What's up, you guys? Today my knees are tight, stiff, and sore. And this is what they look like when I assess them in a narrow stance squat, okay? So here, if I stack my chest over my hips over my heels, and I go straight down, right around here, this is about as far as I can go. If I go lower than this, then I start to get a little discomfort in both my knees and even in my ankles now, okay? So what's limiting me from going further into this narrow stance squat without pain are muscles on the back of my shins that are tight. So my calves, and more importantly, muscles called the soleus muscles. So if you take the calf muscle off, underneath there's what's called your soleus muscle, and it's a broad, thick, very strong muscle that's stuck to the back of your shin bone. So the soleus and the calf muscle together, they help you to plantar flex or tippy toe like this, okay? There's a muscle in the front outer edge of the shin called your tibialis anterior. That muscle helps you to do the opposite. It helps you to dorsiflex your ankle, or it helps you, flex just means bend. So if you're dorsiflexing, if you imagine that your feet are sharks, you know how sharks have a dorsal fin, this would be the dorsal surface of your feet, and you're flexing or bending the top surface of your feet up towards your shin, okay? So if the muscles on the back of your shins are tight, they will restrict the ability of your shins to go forward, okay? That's just kind of how it works. So oftentimes when people who have tight calves and soleus muscles, when they try to squat, they run into the same issue that I'm running into. They start going down, then those tight calf and soleus muscles restrict the ability of the shin to go down towards the tops of the feet. So now they either have to go up on their tippy toe, or they have to retreat back into their hip, and their chest falls and their squat ends up looking kind of like this, all right? So these wedges are used, or oftentimes offered up as a solution to that, because when you stand on them, now your feet are in a plantar flexed or slightly tippy toe position, and you can have the tightest calves and soleus muscles in the world and still do what looks like a pretty serviceable squat. Like, all of a sudden, I know that these muscles are tight on me right now, but compared to what I showed you on this flat surface, when I'm on a 20-degree wedge, now I can exhibit much more of a squat. If your training goal is to use squats to build your thighs and your hips and whatever else, and you've got tight calves and soleus muscles, this is a good thing to do. The only problem with this is it's sort of like, it's like training wheels, okay? It doesn't fix the issue of lack of dorsiflexion, lack of the ability to do this in your ankles, okay? So, and then in real life, of course, when you go to pick up your dog or pick up your dog's poop or something, unless you got that wedge under you, you're still kind of in the same position. You still having the same problem. So I'm not bagging on doing squats on wedges. This is a really fantastic exercise, okay? But I'm gonna show you how to use the wedge, or how I use the wedge, to actually fix my lack of ankle dorsiflexion. And this is what I call a dorsiflexion squat, okay? And the good thing is, the same wedge you're using to facilitate your squats or to help you squat, the same wedge can actually be used to fix your lack of ankle dorsiflexion. All you have to do is turn it around. Now, I'm lucky. I've got this beautiful adjustable or modular wedge. It's from Squat Wedgies. It's made out of solid rubber, so it's heavy, it's sturdy, and it's very stable. This segment is 7 degrees, this segment is 13, and they interlock with each other. So right now, I'm going to turn this wedge in the opposite direction, and I'm going to just warm up with a few dorsiflexion squats. So now I'm standing upslope into this wedge, so when I stand up on it, my ankle is in a 7-degree dorsiflexed position. From this, so there's already a slight stretch on my calf and soleus muscles. If I stack my chest over my hips over my heels, and I go straight down, I'm now feeling the restriction in that soleus muscle. Now I'm saying soleus now because the calf muscles stretch out pretty well in the same position with the knee straight, but to actually get to the soleus muscle underneath the calf, we have to add a little bit of knee flexion or a little bend in the knee, okay? So all I'm gonna do is I'm trying to go straight down. I might change my angle a little if that enhances the stretch that I'm feeling down here, okay? I'm also not just passively yielding to gravity. Going back to these tibialis anterior muscles out here, I am actively using these tibialis anterior muscles to dorsiflex, or to pull myself down. Because the benefit of doing that, besides strengthening the tibs, or the tibialis anterior muscles, is when you contract these, it reciprocally inhibits the soleus in the calf. So when you contract your bicep, your brain has to send a simultaneous message to your tricep to relax. So the same thing happens here. If I contract these muscles in the front, it actually helps the calf and the soleus muscles to relax, and that allows me to lengthen them out even more. And by the way, this isn't just a stretch. This is an eccentric, I'm lowering myself eccentrically into my soleus muscle. I'm going to talk mostly about the soleus because that is the one that I think people need to be aware of. And if we address the soleus, then more meaningful changes occur in the ankle joint, allowing for better dorsiflexion, okay? So I'm talking to you this whole time. I call this a dorsiflexion squat, but the purpose of this is to actually train a different length into the soleus muscle. It's not just stretching the muscle, I'm actually trying to condition the muscle neuromuscularly by firing the antagonistic tibialis anterior muscle to lengthen that soleus muscle out, okay? And just starting with a 7-degree wedge. All right, now we're gonna progress to the 13-degree wedge, all right? So now when I stand, I'm fully upright. Starting position in the ankles is now 13 degrees of dorsiflexion. So that's obviously my soleus muscle is starting at a much greater pre-stretched position. So if I stack my chest over my hips over my heels, and I go straight down, I now get pushed into the restriction, or I get pushed into my soleus muscle a little sooner. All right, and now, and that's fine. I'm not going to try to force that, but I'm still actively pulling upwards with my tibialis anterior muscles, trying to reciprocally inhibit the soleus muscle that counters this movement. All right, and I'm also making sure my knees do not collapse inwards towards each other. And I'm just trying to stay stacked over this and just doing a few of these. Now, I'm gonna make this video short, so I'm not gonna do as many as I normally do, but I'm not trying to force anything. I'm just trying to pull the tops of my feet up and lengthen. I'm feeling a big stretch back here. Okay, so now I'm gonna grab this 7-degree wedge back, and it interlocks with this lower piece. Now I have that perfect 20-degree angle. So if I standing here, just at rest, at 20 degrees, I'm getting a big stretch, a very significant stretch in both my calf and my soleus muscle. Once again, If my legs are straight, I'm stretching mostly my calves. But as soon as I stack my chest over my hips and my hips over my heels, and I go straight forward and not let my knees collapse inward, I'm getting a big, big stretch into that soleus muscle down here. Now this is such an extreme angle that I have found that now if I retreat back into my hip, because I can't go any farther into dorsiflexion from this angle, but if I just retreat back into the hip, lower myself, and then come forward, I now can kind of really just get a degree and a half of extra dorsiflexion. I'm literally just sitting down onto this position, letting the maximum amount of stretch occur, still firing my tibialis anterior to see if I can get a little lower. Okay, and I don't need that many repetitions, or I don't need to spend much time at this height because it's really high. Now, once I've done that, I'm now going to retest my flat ground narrow neutral squat, and let's see what happens. Okay, so same deal, chest over the hips, hips over the heels. I'm going to just go straight down using actively dorsiflexing my feet upwards with the tibialis anterior. And now, because we've stretched these muscles so effectively, I'm able to get much lower. This normally hurts. If I don't do this, then the tight muscles back here pull the joint surfaces in my knees together, and then as I start creating these extreme angles in those joint surfaces, it hurts. But if I take tension off of the joints by lengthening the tight muscles in the back, then I can enter a much deeper narrow stance squat because I have so much more available dorsiflexion in my ankle available. Okay, and then like say if you try doing this, you're like, okay, this is cool, but I feel stuck now. It's not a problem. Just lift your butt up and then lift your chest up, and then a few of those. Okay, there's more to this, but I just wanted to show you that because I feel that is a super important thing. Once again, just using the wedges like this is great. This is like, these are super. Like now you see on this wedge, I mean, this is wonderful. But if you want to be able to functionally squat in the real world without, pardon me, but without these training wheels, then turn the wedge around. Start training or retraining the length into the soleus muscles that are restricting your ankle dorsiflexion, and then you don't need that. You know, you can, if you want it, you can, but it becomes optional rather than essential. All right, anyway, I hope that was helpful. Much aloha.